Hello, everybody. Today's first review is going to be of a show called Betaal from, I think, was it 6 years ago, I believe? And then it was only 4 episodes. But they did fit quite a bit into that episode. Now, it is I don't know if this would be classed as Bollywood, but it's definitely a foreign film, at least to me anyway. Or foreign show, I guess you could say. And yeah, 4 episodes, and I wish they had have maybe continued it. It doesn't say that it's over, but I mean, 6 years between seasons, I think would be a little bit insane for them to even try and bring it back now. I think they ended it. They ended it on a high note, and it was kind of like, oh, I wish they had have done maybe one more episode to see exactly how that would have turned out. But it is what it is, and yeah, at least they ended it on like a pretty reasonable cliffhanger, so that there's like at least somewhat of a solid ending. You kind of have an idea of what's going to happen to probably most of the world, uh, just based on releasing this evil into it. So I did give this show an 8 out of 10, and we will go over the cast list before we actually get into my talking points. So we had Vincent Kumar Singh, who played victim. I don't know why I read it like that. Oh my god. Vikram Saro, Siri. I think it was Siri, actually. Was how you actually pronounce his name. And then Ahana Kumra, who played DC Ahu Alawali, I want to say is how you pronounce that. So forgive me if I'm butchering these names because, again, it was a foreign show, like from India. So, the language was Hindi, and I followed the subtitles. But yeah, some of it was in English and some of it was in Hindi, so it was kind of weird. They would go back and forth depending on what they were saying, and of course, there was obviously English-speaking people in it too, due to the British being the enemy. But we'll get into that a little bit more. Then we had Sukrita Palaya as Commandant Tagi, I believe. I believe that's how they pronounce her name in the show. Then we had Jatin Goswami as Assad Akbar. That one's probably the easiest to pronounce, honestly. Siddharth Menon as Nadir Haq, and I think it was Akbar's cousin, if I'm remembering those two characters correctly. It could have been Akbar. Could have been the other guy that was at the window too. That was like one of my. He was more like a secondary character, but I believe Akbar was Haq's cousin. Forgive me if I'm mistaking that, but I believe that was right. And then we had Majiri Pupia, Papaya, I'm gonna say, who played Punia, who was one of the villagers who they were trying to, I guess, run out in the beginning, but then obviously they needed her for help later on in the show. Then we had Jitendra Yoshi, who played Aja Mudhavan, who was this owner of this company who was trying to build this road to get all of these villagers out of this place and into a better place, I guess, essentially. Although he was doing it for his own selfish reasons, clearly, because I'm not exactly sure what his company was trying to do, but they were trying to run everybody out of their villages, and obviously the people weren't having that, and they were trying to say that they were Naxals, which I think were like basically rebels, right? And they were trying to say that they were stopping them from their production and so on and so forth, but it turns out that wasn't actually the truth at all. And then we had Sinya Anand, or and I think that might be how you actually pronounce it, who played Savani Moldavan, who was the daughter. And then Minal Kapoor, who played Shakatullah. Oh wow! I think I actually nailed that on the first try. That's pretty impressive. Moldovan, and then Ankar Vikal, who played Banu, and then of course we had Richard Delane, who played Colonel Lindock, who was the enemy. And let me just say that in the very beginning of the show, they seem to be worshiping some sort of, or maybe they're making some sort of sacrifice to this, like, god Betaal. And I'm not exactly sure. He is, I believe when I Googled it, it said it was, like, part of, like, Indian folklore, if I'm not mistaken. And that he was, like, a protector of something. But obviously he wasn't any good. Like, he was a demon sort of thing. So not something you want to be praying to. But I guess maybe they were making, like, these sort of sacrifices to him, or praying to him to keep him at bay, maybe. Like, maybe that was some sort of deal they made with him. Now, obviously, there was some sort of evil in these caves that they were trying to keep out as well. So I'm kind of feeling like, yeah, these, whatever they were doing, praying to him and so on and so forth, like calling him Lord and whatnot, was a way to keep him satisfied, right? Like, as long as they were praying to him, he thought that they were, I guess, bowing to him in a sense, maybe. Now, obviously, the evil that is in these caves is not great when we find that out. So clearly there's a request for the tunnel to be open, right? Cave tunnel, whatever you want to call it. And they bring in the CIPD, so military. And the one squad that we follow throughout the show is called the Baz Squad, but we don't find that out until a little bit later, which I found kind of funny. Or maybe I just missed it the first time it was mentioned. But so, yeah, then we find out that Betaal Mountain has been haunted or cursed for many years by this Betaal and whatever else is in this cave. And I'm not really sure if they were supposed to be... Now, in the description of the show, it says zombies. But, I mean, they were zombie-like, but they were also, like, kind of possessed. So it was a little hard to tell whether they were supposed to be... Like, they were undead, obviously. But, like, when they were talking about the history of it, when the British had their mutiny or whatever, and way back in 1857, when this colonel decided to basically go completely nuts. So he essentially just raised Betaal's army single-handedly through the use of black magic. Now, he wanted to be emperor of India so that he could create a British India, essentially. So he was just trying to take over. That's what he wanted to do. Now, I guess he was part of this squad called the 90th Tanton Volunteers. So they were, I guess, the most dangerous of the British squads. And I guess they were the most ruthless of the British army in that time. So they went in and just pretty much did whatever they could to wipe out anything in their path, right? And then, of course, obviously this whole mutiny happened with the colonel, where he turns his whole army single-handedly into, like, this undead army. And then I can't remember how they got trapped in the tunnel. I don't really know if they ever touch on that, but they got trapped in there somehow anyway. And yeah, thanks to the use of black magic and the fact that he sacrificed his son to gain the powers of Betaal was kind of pretty crazy to me. Like, the fact that he was willing to just sacrifice his own son for the power that he was going to possess was crazy. So, again, I guess it's kind of like they need to sacrifice a child, so Savani is going to be the next one that, obviously, the colonel wants to sacrifice, and he's able to possess Toggy as well. And it was kind of cool to see, like, them get trapped in this old, like, British bunker, basically. So obviously they were going to be they got surrounded pretty quick by this whole army, and the ending battle is just absolutely crazy between them all. Just the fact that it kind of reminded me of, like, the Call of Duty zombies, essentially, where you're, like, trapped in a certain part and you have to try to find your way out. Now, they do eventually, and everybody kind of does what they need to do for their own reasons throughout the show. But yeah, not all of them are good. Obviously, Savani's father was not the greatest man in the world. Let's just say that much. He did not treat her well. He just wanted to he just wanted money. That was all he really cared about, was the money. Now, again, I will say that the one thing I wanted to touch on for sure was the makeups and VFX in this show was absolutely stunning. Uh, just the design of the undead with the red glowing eyes, and uh, like they look kind of like, obviously because they've been in that cave for a very long time, right, or tunnel. Um, they looked like they had aged, even though they were undead. They looked aged, and then when the soldiers from the Baz squad got infected, they almost looked stronger. So I'm thinking that when you first get infected, you have like almost unbelievable strength. Now, again, I'm not saying that the Colonel wasn't still strong, because he had the power to possess, and he had the power to, uh, yeah, I guess possess technically, because he was able to possess Toggy, and then he was almost able to possess um, uh, Vikram as well. So it was kind of crazy to see that his power was still that strong even after all those years being trapped. Now, again, obviously they had no idea that these guys were in the cave, and they thought it was Nexels when they first went in there. So Nexels, rebels, whatever you want to call them. They thought that the village had basically planted people in there to lure them in and kill them, right? Was what the soldiers thought originally. Now, obviously, Banu and uh, Ajay were the ones that blew up set off the explosion to get them to kill some of the villagers before they went into the tunnel. So they were behind it all, and this whole mess wouldn't have even happened if it hadn't been for them, right? Uh, so, yeah, goes to show you that you shouldn't listen to everybody. And I mean, they were just following orders, though, right? And I guess that Vikram had done something like that in the past before too, where he had to follow orders that weren't necessarily aligning with his moral code, obviously, but because he didn't want to lose his position, he followed through with it anyway, and had killed a child earlier on. And he kind of admits to it at the very end of the show that he was lying, and he is like not really that great of a person, that he is a murderer, and did things that he's not proud of. So at least he kind of repented, I guess, at the end of the show. And then, of course, who was it? Savani destroys the shrine, or the shrine at the very end of the show, and then she's flipping through the book when they can hear like the calls from everybody, like the other militaries saying that they're like being surrounded by all angles and so on and so forth. And she goes to like this channel on this little TV in the car, and they're talking about how if these stories are true and so on and so forth, and then you can see the British ships in the background coming in. So when the shrine was destroyed, it unleashed the full raw power of Betaal. So, again, not a thing you want to be messing with. So the tunnel shouldn't have even been opened in the first place. But, yeah, really cool VFX and makeup design for this show, for sure. And yeah, it was kind of weird, the differentiation between the powers. Like, maybe it was because they were military and they had like trading and so on and so forth, that they were stronger. But yeah, like the ones when the military guys were getting infected, it almost seemed like they were superhuman. But the other zombies almost seemed like they were aged and were easy to kill. Now, I'm not saying that. Yeah, it almost did seem that way. Like the younger ones were harder to kill and the older ones were easy. So maybe they kind of were supposed to be aging too. It's an interesting concept. Like, this is one of those zombie shows, or Infected. It kind of had like paranormal aspects to it too, I guess, in a sense, with the, possessions and stuff. But yeah, it was weird because it almost like they were like a zombie demon crossover in a sense. Is what I kind of gathered, because obviously they were being controlled by Betaal, so it made sense that they weren't completely zombified. And the only ones that were able to speak were the newly infected and the Colonel. But yeah, it was cool to see some of the effects in this show, especially when Toggy was being possessed and her hair was graying and so on and so forth. And when she like went back into the shadows and the Colonel's just like standing right behind her, I was like, oh, what a cool transition when she like backs up into the shadows and he just steps forward so that you know he's taking control of her. But it was just cool that he was only ever like in the shadows sort of thing. So yeah, definitely some cool effects in the show for sure. And would love to see something else like it down the road, or maybe if they do decide to do a second season, where this could possibly, like, what could potentially happen if they do decide to do a second season. I don't think they will, but I mean, for a 4 episode show, it was pretty intense. I have to admit. Uh, I think I've touched on everything I can. So yeah, I will see you guys in, I guess, my second review for today after this one. Bye bye for now.